Welcome to the Hangin Banners podcast with your hosts, Tyler Witt.
How about this block here by Tyler Witt? You're going to see him get out in front, and he's going to get a key block that springs this play.
Jack Coachman.
And here he is, having the time of his life.
And Ryan Sartori.
Maybe short, but he's thick.
That's thick with two C's at the end.
And welcome back. It's episode 25 of the Hangin Banners podcast. I'm Ryan Sartori. With me, as always, well, not really as always. Sometimes it's just one of them, but today it's both of them. Tyler Witt, Jack Coachman. We are all the Hangin Banners podcast. Gentlemen, welcome back for another episode.
Yeah.
Enthusiasm.
That was good. We're so bad at your post-intro conversation. I was like,
Yep.
Oh, no, I was about to just sit here in silence again, but that was so important.
It's just
Really
all the weight is put on me and Jack to like make something of that transition, and it
hate
never happens.
And I've been trying to do my best to get it out of the way and to you guys faster. Sometimes I talk a little bit too much at the beginning,
Doesn't matter.
just to be like, let's see, like maybe their apprehensions won't be as much after, like a minute of me droning on about like, welcome to the show. And no, still every time it's just like, who's going to do it?
I think it's
going to
like-
pop their cherry this podcast.
It's like the two outfielders in the outfield, like looking at the ball,
Mhm.
just waiting to see, like, oh no, he's got it. I'm not going to go. And then
Yeah, we
he's-
both called
Jack's
yours.
thinking the same. Yeah, just looking at each other.
So it is episode 25 of the Hangin Banners podcast. And in this episode, we are now in a new format. We feel comfortable in this new format where we have some old familiar segments. We've got a brand new segment, and we're talking about some of the bigger topics in the sports world ad nauseum. Today, we'll talk a lot about the NFL because there's been a huge shakeup in the draft. Many people probably already know, but we will give our takes on it here. We also today are recording on day one of NFL free agency, which is technically not until Wednesday, but it's today because it's the tampering period and all of these deals are happening, though they're unofficial until Wednesday. The NFL is kind of funny in that way, but it's happening. Deals are being made. Money is being spent. We'll talk about all of that. In addition, Jack, this is your wheelhouse. This is your time of year. It's your one shining moment. March Madness is back. I don't know if we're allowed to say this or not. We don't profit off of this podcast, so we don't have
The
to say
big
March
dance.
Mayhem or the dance or whatever. We could say March Madness. We'll talk about that, Jack's bracketology, what to watch, and we'll close the show off with our new segment starting 5. Today we are drafting fields. This came to my mind. I won the one-day poll, by the way, as I kind of uploaded our podcast a little bit late, but I won. So today we're drafting fields, left open intentionally again. But the reason fields came to mind is with the World Baseball Classic being around. We've been able to see some new fields from all over the world. Not so much anymore, as most games are now coming stateside to Chase Field in Arizona, but have been able to see some new cool fields around the world. And so that's kind of what brought it to mind. So we'll draft fields later in the show and we'll close things off with Hang Your Banner. So with all that said, let's jump right in and count our wins. I will pause and wait for anybody to pick up the silence.
No, I'll go. No silence
Oh,
allowed. this time.
wow.
Yeah. I'm ready because my win of the last week is physical media. Is something that I hadn't super been involved with much. You listen to music, it's online, you watch TV, it's all streaming, and everything you read is digital. But we found some old records in my grandma's house and
Ooh.
wanted to take them to a record store. So I went with my sister, and though I've never been a record player owner, nor a record user, those places are so cool. Like just walking around and looking at this emporium of different like music history sorted by genre, artist name. You've got like 4 or 5 employees buzzing around. They've got DVDs and CDs and stuff too. But I'm like, wow, that was neat. And while they were appraising our records that we were trying to sell, my sister and I, like, we'll just walk around the area. And we went to a bookstore, which also is a place that I haven't been in a while. I'm like, oh my gosh, this bookstore is so cool. Like sorted by genre, sorted by title. They've got this little upstairs area and kind of some nooks off to the side, a basement if you want these things. I'm like, especially in the city of Chicago, they're almost hole in the wall type places at a point where most of their inventory is either above or below where you enter. And I'm like, dude, those places are so cool to walk through.
There is a record shop store in Naperville that is quite literally a hole in the wall. You have to walk down an alley that you don't think anything is in, and there is a record store behind an old furniture shop or something like that. And it's kind of tucked away and hidden, and only the people who know about it know about it.
I am a proud record player owner, and I love me some vinyl records. There's something about it. It's just like a little comfort.
It's cathartic though, right? Like having that physical thing in your hand. Yeah, it's easier to like have everything right here in your phone in the palm of your hand, but like sometimes it's nice to hold the book. Sometimes it's nice to like digest a full album the way people used to kind of, you know, pick through and line their songs up in a way that mattered and curate those things for you. There's something cathartic to that, and there's something real about that, and there's something experiential about that you just don't necessarily get otherwise.
Honestly, I think it's like the feedback that you get, like when you listen to a record, like you hear the little like audio, like the little imperfections, right? Like the little clicks, the smooth, like little, like a sizzle almost, like it's, and you hear it like as the vinyl starts to like spin. So I love stuff like that. I love going to record stores because, like Jack said, I think they're just cool places, all of them. There's never been like one record store that's just been like, oh, this is like super lame. Like they're all pretty cool.
They all have their own vibe, and it's kind of like, allow me to make a juxtaposition. It's kind of like a baseball field, right? Like a Major League Baseball stadium where they all have their own like vibe and feel and jive. Listen, I'll bring everything back to baseball because baseball reflects life. But Jack, go ahead.
No, I was thinking it's a little bit of a pricey hobby, and one that I don't think I'd exercise enough, because I'm walking around, I'm like, these records, man, some of them are pretty expensive, and even just like used record players. I am still an album listener, and I still have my methods, but it's all through YouTube, Spotify, Pandora at this point, and I'm comfortable with that. But if I'm at a friend's house and they've got a record player, or they've got something that can make it feel a little bit more organic, even some kind of artificial ways to do that, it definitely, Tyler, you're right. There's just something about it that sets a different mood than just listening through earbuds or something. So physical media.
Is there still cost control on like albums, or is it like kind of like comic books where the better albums ever, the more significant albums ever cost more to get on vinyl?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So like, I don't know. There's, I think a good example.
Like, let's say I wanted to get Dark Side of the Moon on vinyl.
I think those are typically at a resale shop. Those are, I think, often cheaper because they're so accessible and highly like printed, right?
Yes and no. Like I guess it just depends on demand too. Like I feel like Dark Side of the Moon is going to be one that that a lot of places have, but it'll still be kind of expensive. I would put it probably $40-$50 range. That's like,
wow, okay.
But
then let's say that like a new artist drops a brand new album and they release it on vinyl. What would that cost?
If it's not like a super popular artist, like just someone who's like, but he's been out there, he's not like crazy popular, I would say it's like $25.
Okay, so there's a significant gap. And
that's
like
the baseline was $25 at this place,
which like was probably, I mean, what, $10 more expensive than getting a compact disc?
Yeah. Depends on where it depends on.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is millennial talk about, physical media. We're like, how much were CDs again?
Yeah.
But
no,
my real authentic music listening experience, I think the same thing is for all of us, is like it was buying singles off of the iTunes library for 99 cents or $1.29 whenever they upped that price. Like that was my initial real like dive into music. Yeah, like
interesting.
But it wasn't.
I definitely. My parents were like big iTunes users, but I was a CD buyer. I liked to like every now and then I would go buy a CD, and like if an artist I like had a new album, like I'm getting the CD. I wasn't getting the iTunes album.
I would just listen to whatever my mom had on, and I really didn't understand how music kind of worked for a little bit And so, I grew up on healthy spoonfuls of like Aerosmith, Bon Jovi, 80s hair metal,
Beautiful,
stuff like that,
beautiful.
Prince even. And
What happened?
no, I still listen to all those things. I'm just
I'm teasing.
working country radio, so I listen to a lot of country music now. But like, I remember the first CD that I actually ever was given was Green Day's American Idiot. And that
Strong.
began my
One of the
music
best albums ever.
exploration. Was from there, and I got a couple Eminem CDs at like a disc replay when that was still cool. And then after that, it was like, I finally got an iPod Nano, and I'm gonna buy 5 songs that I'm gonna listen to repeatedly for a long time. And then the streaming platforms came and such like that. But like that was really my music listening experience from adolescence on. So.
Fun fact, there is still a disc replay in Crest Hill.
Is it still there?
It is still there.
That's where I got them from. I didn't know if it was still open.
Yeah, so because of music, and I go to there's like a bunch of record stores that are opening around this area in the Chicagoland area. So I went into a newer one out in Joliet by the mall, and he said that disc replay is like the guy has the back room stocked, and he said he doesn't have to get any new stuff, and he could probably stay open for like 5 to 6 years.
Wow.
Just by sheer volume of stuff that he has.
I'm sure that's like garage sales and estate, sales and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just going out and knowing what to buy and at what price point. And that's awesome.
Well, just cool stuff that he likes. He said not even like what's in disc replay, DVDs and some like collectible toys. Yeah, video games. So it's.
Do you guys remember your first favorite song?
Ooh.
Like the first song that you were like, I'm going to attach this to my personality. Jack, what was it?
I think it was my first ever like non-automatic ringtone, right? Is like first one that I put as my phone ringtone was Ozzy Osbourne's Crazy Train.
Really? That's awesome.
Yeah, I think that was my ringtone for probably a year or two, and I remember listening to Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne pretty often.
What a transcendent song too. Mine, believe it or not, was is it Daniel Powder's Bad Day? Yes.
Yeah, it's such a horrible song.
Oh no.
Look back on it, and hindsight is 2020. It is a terrible song.
You spent a lot of time in like Walgreens and stuff, didn't you? Because that's where that song
was.
Would
Cat in the background again, making another
He's
appearance.
back.
This time, shirt on. Tell him to take his shirt off.
Wait, what was his first song? What was his first like favorite song?
Do you remember what your first favorite song was when you were a kid?
Or band. We'll take favorite band.
Or band. Or favorite band, yeah.
Artist or whoever. Just your favorite
band,
anything.
Artist.
Favorite.
Bob Mould.
Oh,
Bob
wow.
Mould. Okay.
That's kind of a fun pick. I don't mind some Bob Mould.
Thanks for putting a shirt on this time, Kent.
He said, thanks for putting a shirt on this time. He's got beef with you now.
It's all right. I know he still loves me at the end of the day. All right, Tyler, did you have an answer to that question?
Oh, yeah.
Well, if we're going in the same context of like Jack being his like first ringtone, mine I like did the old recorded off the speaker in the car. I did Replay. Remember that song like when you were in middle school? Like,
was that Ayaz?
Yes, Ayaz.
Oh, that's bad too.
That was bad, yeah.
Oh, you guys make me feel really good about my pick.
I don't remember like what, because I know I had like this iPod Nano that I put a bunch of stuff on, but I don't remember like what my favorite song was.
I remember the first song I ever bought, and then we have to move on. The first song that I ever bought was oh God, Drake, Kanye, Eminem are all on it.
Oh, Forever.
Forever, yeah. That crazy mashup. I remember that being one of the first songs I ever bought. My mom was pissed because they said fuck. All right. We're still counting our wins. I'll go quick here because this past weekend was, believe it or not, the first slow pitch softball tournament in Northern Illinois. My team, Elevate, shout out to the boys. We competed, didn't do well, but the elements were fucking nuts. It was like 30 degrees. There was the first day, an inch of snow on the ground. and people ran around on it so much that it all kind of just disappeared by the time we were ready to play. Then, as we were wrapping up our second game, snow started to fall again. We had to come back the next day, and surprise, surprise, there was an inch of snow on the ground that we had to just play through. They dusted off the baselines, they dusted off the pitcher's mound and the batter's box, and the rest was up for grabs. So it was a weird weekend. More coming this next weekend. Slow pitch softball season is back. I'm excited for it to be back, and this is one of like the core elements of my summer is just hanging out with the guys at softball tournaments all weekend and slamming some beers and playing some softball and making memes. And that's the good stuff. So that's my win for the week.
It's a big win.
That is. Welcome back. You're getting warmed up into your season now. So maybe you'll stop talking about just baseball and more about slow pitch softball.
Listen, we are doing
I'm down. I want to hear more about slow pitch softball.
Yes.
Oh, I could do a deep dive. I could do a deep dive on like the fact that like this past weekend, right? So there are non-money tournaments and money ball tournaments. The money ball tournaments are things that you want to win because your team is going to majorly profit off of it. What we had this past weekend was more or less an exhibition tournament. And so you take them seriously, you want to win, but like you're not following everything to a T. We usually have a uniform rule. If you don't show up in identical uniforms, then you have to be the away team. You cannot be the home team for a given tournament. That's not applied. There's a whole bunch of rules that aren't applied during these non-money ball tournaments. There was a situation where somebody walked. They were going to get an automatic runner, and they were like, can he just run down there real quick? Is that cool? The umpire nodded and said yes. They sent the runner down to first, and then the team in the field, and this was kind of the Bush League move that everybody was like rolling their eyes at and like, this is so stupid. The team in the field appealed the runner at first, and they called him out because the original runner never went and touched first base. Even after the umpire was like, yeah, sure, you can send your runner down there. That's fine. And then when they appealed it in the field, the same umpire called him out. He had to call him out, apparently.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And, and this is one of the teams that everybody has issues with because they're all just kind of jag bags and whatever.
Playing by the rules is what it sounds like they're doing.
They're being a little Bush League and whatever. They ended up losing the game. The team in the field ended up losing the game on a walk-off 3-run homer, which was poetic justice. Anyway, I digress. Tyler, your win.
Boilers. That's all I got to say. Purdue wins the Big Ten championship for basketball. Exciting weekend to be a Boilermaker. That also makes us one of the only teams in college sports this year to have a team in the Big Ten championship in both football and basketball. Super exciting year. There's no better time to be a Boiler right now. Got to watch some of the Big Ten tournament with my friends, some Boilermakers themselves. So that was also a very good part of my week.
I know them Boilers are dogs, man.
And good news for you is St. Peter's didn't make the tournament this year.
Good. I heard Oral Roberts is might make a reappearance. So
yeah, you would potentially face him in the Sweet 16.
We'll talk more college basketball coming up in literally just a little bit. That's coming around the corner. For right now, let's get to Intercepted at the Goal Line. I am going to smother you guys with more baseball talk because it's the thing that invades my life. But we're specifically talking about uniforms. The World Baseball Classic is happening right now, and pool play is going on. Some teams are. It's very similar to the World Cup, which we covered briefly when it was happening in November. Pool play happens, and then they split off into an actual bracket if you make it. But some of the jerseys being used right now are just zero effort. And so I bring to the table first, in second to last place for jersey originality, Canada's jersey, which used size 9 font on the front of their jerseys.
I don't hate it.
Got to keep it simple sometimes.
The logo on the hat, very cool. I'll take the logo on the hat. That's nice, right?
Yeah.
I like a good button up. I like the
stripes on the sleeves.
The wishbone, nice. The wishbone collar, stripes on the sleeve, and the font, bad.
It's a little disorienting.
Bad. I don't like that it goes over the top of the gut. It should probably be proudly displayed on the chest.
Like a breast,
this is kind of like over your diaphragm.
Yeah.
Not great. Also, not as bad as
I know who last played.
Great Britain.
This was awful. I saw these. This is one of the worst uniforms I've seen in sports.
This is it, by the way. There is nothing else to look at on these jerseys. It is Great Britain stacked on top of each other with no originality in their font. You could literally put Times New Roman in bold, and you would find this as the jersey. The logo on the hat is GB, and their flag is represented on the same side of their body on each garment, on the sleeve of their jersey and on the side of their hat.
With the unnecessary yellow border, too, with yellow not being part of this color scheme. I think the one thing that would have made this better is I'm trying to think of what it was. Do you guys remember the Cleveland Browns when the three guys were holding up the sign, but the dog pound letters got mixed around? So it was like dog pound or something. If they had flipped the end of great and the beginning of Britain, that I think is the only thing could have saved it, is if they were like Gerbera Eaton, because they just put that little thought into the sequencing of it, because it looks like it's out of order the way it is.
It does. It looks like GR Bree Eaton.
Oh, these jerseys are so bad.
We're recording on Monday, and happening right now is another game, and they're using their red uniforms, and they forgot to put the T on great. You'll see that flying around Twitter after the show. It just says Gree Britain or Gria Britain. Very bad. Very bad. So that's intercepted at the goal line for me. What do you guys got?
Feel free, Jack.
Oh, all right.
He's looking up Bria Britain right now.
Honestly, those jerseys were such a mess for me. No, my intercepted at the goal line is somebody who, as of the last year or two, I've had no problem saying is really annoying and continues to be annoying. Today, it's Aaron Rodgers again. Oh, you thought it was? Yeah, maybe
I did think it was me.
I'll throw you in. I could do that, but no, Aaron Rodgers. I'm so sick of this guy. On top of all the different problems and dilemmas we've had to endure over the last 2.5 years coming from the Rodgers, you can't even say Rodgers camp, because a lot of it is just him himself. Today, this back and forth about Rodgers getting traded to the Jets. You've got Trey Wingo and Dov Kleiman saying it's a done deal. You've got Rappaport saying, I have no idea what they're talking about. It's not close to done. Then
Trey
Schefter
Wingo's
slides in
gonna
at the
have
end
to
with the
delete
like.
his Twitter.
It's the you know what? The signs are pointing towards it being done. Then Rodgers is like, he's throwing his stupid answers in the mix. I'm so over Aaron Rodgers. He has had the limelight for too long. And I hope that whatever team takes him next year, he withers and his football skills atrophy, and we're done with him by 2025.
Yeah. Well said.
Wow. That was some intense hatred.
And he already was dead at 38 or 37 or whatever. He's back to life.
That's right. I did write him off as dead. I will say, like, Aaron Rodgers very much likes to hear his own voice. We all kind of know that.
No one else does.
I saw somebody today suggest that Aaron Rodgers is waiting to announce the fact that he is willing to go to New York and that the deal could already be done, but he is waiting for the limelight to be off free agency and in a lull period so that he can have all of the spotlight.
Dude, what an exhausting guy.
Yeah, right?
He used to be one of my favorite players to watch. He was like must-see TV. I don't care what team you root for. He's the best guy to watch in football. And now you hear about him way too much in season, off season.
And there were times too where like I was kind of into the kind of wry humor and sarcasm that he brought to the media at times. But now it's reached a point where I'm like, hey, man, can you just play football?
That's enough. Well, at least we don't have to worry about him saying that he owns Chicago anymore. So
maybe. We don't know.
To be determined.
TBD.
All right. Moving into mine, Ryan kind of touched on it earlier. The snow was back, and it's March. We just did a starting five about spring things, and that wasn't in anyone's list. So, big shocker when you walked out on Sunday morning and saw your car covered in snow. So
we got 8 inches in Rockford.
Yeah, it was bad on was it Thursday or Friday? That like it was almost a mini blizzard for a while where I am.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I was at a friend's house, and she lives on a horse ranch, or she's got a bunch of animals, a bunch of chickens and
Dogs.
roosters. Yeah, she does have a lot of dogs, and horses. But one of the most surreal things was walking out, because we stayed up pretty late because I don't get to see these guys that often, and walking out at 4 a.m. and seeing how dark it is, and like the little light with this, because of the snow, everything's lighter, and then seeing it fall down. That was surreal. But then waking up in the morning and have to scoop off my car, not surreal. Do not recommend.
Yeah, don't put that snow brush away just yet.
No. I keep
'Cause
that
we already-
thing on me.
You stay strapped, son.
Year round, dude, never take it out of the car. You never know.
That's true. Yeah. What happens if, like, I don't know. What else would you have to brush off your car?
No, I just never take it out because I know I'm gonna forget to put it back in.
I did see in China, and I didn't read the actual story. I just took what I saw at face value. That's how you consume media, ladies and gentlemen. That worms were falling out of the sky in China. So maybe that's something that you would have to wipe off your car. I love when I say something obscure and you can immediately tell that Jack is going to the Google machine.
I
Hold on,
did see
worms
that.
falling from sky. All right, keep going. I'll let me read up on this, and I'll jump back in when it's time.
The next part of the show is jumping into sports talk. So I will wait for you to do the big J journalism that this show is known for before jumping into our next thing.
Oh, I'm seeing that they weren't actually animals. They're poplar flowers that bloom and resemble caterpillars. So it was just like the
Oh.
trees dropping these seed type things that resemble worms or caterpillars, which is a sigh of relief, even though I'm on the other side of the world. I don't think I'm prepared for caterpillars raining from the sky in my life.
They have murder hornets and caterpillar rain. We have acid rain. All right. Time to jump into the old sports talk game here. We're going to start with probably the biggest week of the news, biggest news of the week. Oh, fucking words.
Keep going. You got this. You're killing it.
Which was the Chicago Bears trading the number 1 pick in this year's NFL draft to Carolina for a haul, right? Like we all expected. Again, we talked about this maybe 2 episodes ago, what the package could be. And this is about as big as I thought it would be in real life. Maybe an additional first, but what you ended up getting, if you're Chicago, is a pick swap this year from 1 to 9. You also pick up pick number 61 in this year's draft. You get a first-round pick in next year's draft, a second-round pick in the 2025 draft, and DJ Moore. So 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and your number 1 wide receiver for Justin Fields for next season. That sounds like a deal, like instant hit the button. We're good. We'll take that one.
And I know the firsts are the obviously most coveted assets, especially if you think that they've got a chance to be high. First one we know is 1.9. But I like that they got DJ Moore, who's a tangible good, like already a known talent, still pretty young. And I think that's important because if you just get a bevy of picks for the future, you then also are responsible to converting all of those picks into actual value, which is the concern when you trade out of number 1, is you can get a really good player at number 1, but even partway through the first round, all of a sudden you've got question marks. And this is a team that totally could have sat back and said, between Darnell Mooney and Chase Claypool, we might be good enough at every other spot to stay afloat with them at wide receiver, but getting a guy who has pretty light alpha potential, I think was the biggest part of this trade in my mind, because you knew the picks were coming, but DJ Moore's a big ad.
Yeah, I mean, who else were you going to get at wide receiver, right? In a position like this, we've seen the mold, so to speak, is trade for a wide receiver. We've seen the Dolphins do it twice. I think the Bengals had something to do with trading back in their draft to pick up Jamar Chase, or maybe they didn't. But like regardless, this is kind of the mold is you get your quarterback, you get him a number one wide receiver, you see what you have. And the way that the Bears made themselves, the way that they set themselves up in the 2024 draft, if they don't like what Justin Fields turns into after this season, they have the capital to go up next year and get Spencer May or get Caleb Williams from USC, or they might just be in a position where they already have the number one pick because Carolina could be absolutely atrocious next year.
Yeah.
All of that's on the table. Tyler, did you just join from another device?
Oh, this is what a beautiful moment we're witnessing here. Definitely a podcast.
I am on the
listeners,
same
come to
exact
YouTube.
They're multiplying.
Have you ever played musical chairs with yourself?
I love just this podcast, man. This podcast, this league,
This league.
The amount of grit this podcast has is unreal.
So, Tyler, your thoughts on the Bears trade from number one is I think probably in the same place that I am, but like, what am I not getting here from maybe a football perspective?
I think there's like some more sneaky value in DJ Moore, right? Like people were talking about, like he should take like 3 first-round picks. Well, technically DJ Moore is a first-round pick, and then going with what Jack was saying, like he's already proven he's the best receiver. He was the best receiver on the Panthers by far. He's done way more than expected to, as in his first couple of years in the league. So I think there's like a lot of hidden value in that. In the way I heard, Brian Poles and Eberflus did an interview with Pardon My Take, and I listened to that, and they were mentioning something about Chase Claypool and how he came in mid-season, and so his production that he put out, with his time with Chicago last season, wasn't quite there. It was definitely missing something. It wasn't, anything special. But think about like how much football he missed with that team, right? Being in that offense, having the relationship with Justin. I think you put, the wide receiver room in such a good place with this trade, because now you have Chase Claypool, who's going to have that chemistry with Justin Fields. After all this offseason work and going in the camp, you bring in DJ Moore, who's I'm sure is going to click right away with Justin, and seeing how electric that he is as a player, compared to what he was working with and still doing pretty well. And then he's Mooney, at him in there. I mean, he's already been a proven receiver in the Bears organization, so I think you've just created a 3-headed monster without the need for going out and getting that huge name that everyone said we needed to.
And what the reality of that then becomes is, if there are question marks on Justin Fields, this is why I liked the Claypool trade last year, why I like them getting DJ Moore now, is you can say, we gave you pieces to play with. If you can't succeed, now if they can shore up their offensive line a little bit more, then you really are like, okay, there's nothing that should be holding Justin Fields back, because we do still need to see, hopefully, him start to decrease the number of sacks he's taking and the turnovers and stuff. But those have been maybe symptoms of the problem, which is that they don't have just enough skill on offense. That isn't the issue anymore. And so you have created a finite set of outcomes for yourself, which is not something Chicago has really been able to do for 7 or 8 years. It feels like we've had a few different bumps of this team's good, but are they really good? And there's always some little correlational thing where you can't prove why they weren't doing well.
When you look at roster construction of this team and exactly the way that Tyler brought it up and going through each one of their like big 3 receivers, DJ Moore is not going to blow you away with his size and strength. He's 6 foot 210, and he's not a super strong guy, but he is a precision route runner with great hands and the ability to make contested catches. He has been compared to, if you're looking for like another NFL comp, he's a variation of Terry McLaurin is the comp that has been kind of put out there. But when you look at what you have in Chase Claypool, that guy makes up for the size and strength that DJ Moore doesn't have. He's your X wide receiver who's going to be out on the boundary, making those tough catches, going over the top of DBs. He's going to be your 9 route guy, right? And you've got a very, very capable slot receiver in Darnell Mooney, who has been forced to play on the outside the past 3 years of his career, who can now go do those type of things in certain packages, right? Like, he's designed to be inside. He's 5'10", 5'11", or slimmer build. He is supposed to be inside, but given how he has had to play the past couple of years, he now has a new set of skills. So the makeup of the Bears wide receiver room, I think, is very good. Still needs some pieces. I don't know that it cracks top 10 of wide receiver rooms in the NFL yet, but it's a significant improvement from Equanimous St. Brown, Darnell Mooney, and Dante Pettis. Like that puts you somewhere. Who? and again, too, Cole Kmet took huge strides in the final fourth of last year too. So can he kind of evolve and be that tight end that they thought he could be when they drafted him? Obviously, that was the previous tenure, but things are looking up for the Chicago Bears, and they have set themselves up in a significant situation to be successful for years to come. To continue this conversation, I feel like it's important to add in today is the beginning of NFL free agency, and the continued build of this roster is happening as we speak. We've seen some major acquisitions by the Bears, and I don't think that this entire segment should be dedicated to combing through each move and how the roster is being built, but like, we're already here, so we might as well at least have a brief conversation. They have added one of the best coverage linebackers in all of football, and Tremaine Edmonds at the tender age of 24 years old. It's the largest 4-year contract for an inside linebacker in NFL history. $72 million over 4 years for Tremaine Edmonds to kind of lead this team. They've also added Edwards. Is it DJ Edwards from Philly, who wore the green dot? He was their signal caller on the defense. They're making moves on the defense as well as adding serious talent on the offense. And so I think the Bears are kind of headed in that right direction.
Yeah. And I think you look especially positionally, TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds.
Thank you.
Yeah. We're both seen as probably somewhere in the like top 20 free agents available. And both are fairly young. I think Edwards, the older of the two, is 26, 27, somewhere in that range.
Mm-hmm.
And Edmonds is 24 or 5. So you've got guys that they're impact signings, but also could be with the team for a while. Like you're looking at decent length contract, but also potential for multiple contracts, depending on what the team looks like, if they fit the scheme well, if they perform well. That maybe weren't the biggest free agent moves, but you're right. These are the Bears don't need to go get every top free agent signing. You got to get the guys who fit your team, and they're doing that.
I definitely expect them to make a splash sometime soon. I think they're going to go for an offensive lineman. They did. They signed a guard, didn't they?
Nate Davis.
Nate Davis
yeah.
from the Titans.
Mm.
So they're going to make changes to their O-line, and I think not spending on the receiver, the older receiver with an unproven quarterback, you could say, you can kind of build up that O-line with this free agency money, build up the defense because you need key pieces on both the O-line and a majority of the defense.
Who was I feel like I had seen somewhere just on the topic of receiver. I could be wrong. I thought I saw rumors that maybe the Bears were looking at getting McCole Hardman. Which
there
I
were
think,
rumors
was that
prior to the
trade?
tampering period and prior to the trade. Mecole Hardman and had been beckoning to Justin Fields that they could team up and relive their days together on Georgia's roster before Justin Fields ended up in Ohio State. No, it's me. It was really just Mecole Hardman drumming up the rumor mill on that one. I don't think that necessarily fits what they want to do. They already took the risk on Byron Pringle. That did not work out for the Bears last year. If they want to roll the dice on another Kansas City wide receiver, they could. The connection's there, right? Ryan Poles came from the Kansas City front office. I mean, the connection is there. regardless, I think it's interesting to start with the Bears too, as we kind of talk about NFL free agency, because so much of what's going to happen goes through Chicago. Because talking about rumors, Jack, one of the big things that I've seen all day from multiple accounts is that Ryan Poles has been the most active general manager. The Bears have been the most active front office here on day one of NFL's free agency period. In on maybe everybody so far, right? We've seen some major tackles come off the board. We've seen some major guards come off the board, major defensive linemen come off the board already too. What we're starting to see is that the Bears have a lot of money to spend, but they're not going to throw it in the air like confetti and spend it just to spend it. We've seen Jawan Taylor, who was with Jacksonville, is now going to go to Kansas City, gets a 4 or 5 year deal worth $80 million. 60 of it is guaranteed money. That is a gigantic contract. Other deals include Mike McGlinchey, who has a great track record of run blocking, but a not so great track record of pass blocking, getting a deal as a right tackle worth $50 million guaranteed and $82 million overall. Like, they are like market setting deals. Ryan Poles might be in a position to spend money, but he's not going to reset the market for just any Joe Schmo.
Yeah, I think that McGlinchey one, a lot of people have been saying that is significantly overpaid, especially if you think about Andrew Wiley, tackle for the Chiefs, who just signed a 3-year, $24 million deal with the Washington Commanders.
Proud of you.
And man, he played well this season. Like, he put on a clinic in the Super Bowl. And you have a guy like Mike McGlinchey, who, yes, has been a staple in the league for a while, has had some ups and downs. I think he's a very solid player overall, but for that kind of money, for that length of time, as someone who's getting older, getting up there in age, it's very questionable as to why they made such a generous commitment and that length as well.
And it's the team positioning too, right? Like, what did we see out of the Broncos last year that made you think, you know what, you need to go get the third or fourth best offensive lineman on the market. You need a long-term expensive deal, right? Like, some of these teams are rebuilding, and it makes sense to go for guys that are in their mid-20s that you can get a little bit of a premium. But McGlinchey's 28, so they're going to have him until he's 33. And I feel like within the next 5 years, the Broncos are going to have a reset moment, which means they probably aren't having a super high up moment. And I think that where teams were and where they're going is also something we're going to have to keep an eye on throughout free agency, because you had a few teams like the Eagles and the Bengals that have lost key defensive players on teams where defense was a big part of why they respectively went so far in the playoffs.
And don't exclude your Saints from this either.
Well, the difference was the Saints didn't quite have the same level of success as the Eagles and Bengals. I'm talking Jesse Bates, I think, is actually I think he's a candidate for best safety in the NFL. I think he's one of them. He's risen up quickly in the last couple of years, and that's not the kind of guy you want to walk away. But at a certain point, you've got to look and say, how much money can we give? So Atlanta going and getting 4 years, $64 million to Jesse Bates. That's the Falcons' way of saying, all right, we're trying to make some moves. And Cincinnati then has to cobble together and hope they can find another safety on the carousel.
Well, and Cincinnati is in a situation right now where they are prepping for the biggest quarterback contract in NFL history, and also maybe the biggest wide receiver contract in NFL history. You can't separate Burrow and Chase after their rookie contracts are up. So, like, spending money on a safety, is that important when this is a relatively deep safety class coming up, and you can fix your needs pretty quick in the end of the first round or at the end of the second round with either one of their draft picks coming up? Like, does it stink to lose Von Bell and Jesse Bates in the same offseason?
Carolina. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it definitely stinks, but like, there's ways to fix that this year. And so you cut your losses and kind of move on. And that's the Saints situation, right? Of course, lesser levels of success last year, but also, like, this is a very deep D-line draft. They're short on cash, and this is a way that you kind of rebuild that thing.
Right. No, and they went and they made their move of going and getting Derek Carr in this, off season. So there's the give and take, right? It's like everybody wants their teams to get all these better new players, but you either have to find the money or make the roster space so that the depth charts line up. And that's one where I think give it a week or two and we'll look back and be able to see what teams have really taken a for sure step forwards or backwards. But the Bears are one of the teams where we could tell which direction they're headed, and it's very positive at the moment.
There are still so many dominoes to fall in the free agency period. We are not even 24 hours in yet, and we've still yet to see people like Orlando Brown and Dalton Schultz, Caleb McGarry, all these big name guys. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is still available on the free agency market as well.
James Bradbury, also an Eagles defensive back, is out there.
Right. I mean, and this is excluding Draymond Jones, who's out there, is probably still the top defensive tackle free agent available. There's still so many dominoes to fall. But before we move on to March Madness conversations, I do want to bring up the Las Vegas Raiders and their decision-making processes. Because earlier today, they signed Jimmy Garoppolo to, I think, a 3-year contract worth a pretty good lump sum of money. And also available on the free agent market, though it is a restricted free agency, is Lamar Jackson. Now, I get it. There's a tie between McDaniels and Garoppolo from their time in New England together. I understand the connection. And I get maybe he even fits the scheme a little bit better of what Las Vegas is trying to do. Though you have a deep like down the field threat in Devontae Adams, and Garoppolo struggles to throw it farther than 15 yards. But like, you've got Lamar Jackson, MVP winning quarterback, proven guy, and Jimmy Garoppolo, who has had a couple of good years, but for the majority of the time has been a glorified backup. And you choose Jimmy Garoppolo in this situation and sink a ton of money into him. I don't quite think that it's the Mike Glennon experience, but it is maybe a level or two above it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's you can't go always get the top guy. They settled maybe a little early, but also I think that's part of the Ravens' case against Lamar Jackson is he's such a transformational quarterback on offense that there are probably teams and coaches that just don't want to have their team built that way, like from a roster comp perspective. And so I don't think it was crazy for the Raiders to do this, because also, do they feel like they're on the cusp? Do they think that will they be able to keep Lamar for long enough and Adams happy long enough? Because he probably isn't super thrilled that he went from Rodgers to Carr to now Garoppolo. So
did you see the cryptic tweet that Devontae Adams put out? Yeah, Devontae Adams put on his Instagram story, "If we haven't talked in the last 3 weeks, don't hit me up about this shit. Thanks."
Right. So it's like the Raiders have been a troubled team the last couple of years for off-field, on-field teams, players on the roster. I think that I could see them taking just a very mediocre approach rather than going for a big swing that probably ends in a strikeout.
Yeah. I mean, you got to think about how much that cap is going to be impacted by Lamar, right? Like, he wants almost all of his contract guaranteed as well. Like, can you have that? Do you have that just available for him? Especially with the style of offense that they have, I think they like that style. Does Lamar fit that for the money that he's worth? I don't know.
Let it be clear, every NFL team has money for Lamar Jackson.
They should.
Everybody does. Even the small market teams. Like, even if you want to cry like, oh, Baltimore's small market, this is a market shared league. Everybody has money for Lamar Jackson. But again, Jack, I think it comes back to your point of roster comp. Do you have a roster that would be sufficient for Lamar Jackson and his running style and his ability to kind of get out of the pocket and throw on the run and stuff like that? Maybe not everybody has that. Maybe not everybody feels comfortable with that, but I think inevitably Lamar ends up back with the Ravens on a deal that he loves or that he hates. This is kind of the thing that you run into when you're your own representative, is that sometimes you just aren't a great negotiator. And there are people who get paid to be great negotiators. So just something I wanted to bring up, because I think that there's going to be a lot of conversation of it in sports media as we move through this next week about the Raiders choosing Garoppolo over at least trying to explore what might happen if you go after a restricted Lamar Jackson and roll the dice. At the end of the day, You're the Raiders in a stacked division that has the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes for the next 15 years.
It's like, what, his
12
contract's
years?
what, another like 7 years, 6 years? He signed a 10-year deal, didn't he?
Regardless, like I don't think Patrick Mahomes ever leaves the city of Kansas City, right? You have to try something. And you choose to try Garoppolo, in the height of the Mahomes era. But in the height of the Mahomes era, this is your best attempt. That is what I would make me mad if I were a Raider fan. Is like, there is a clearly better option out there. We could have tried harder to get Aaron Rodgers, and that probably would have been a better decision than going after Jimmy Garoppolo and giving him a bunch of guaranteed money. But I digress, because, Jack, it is March Madness season. That means it's wheelhouse season for you. And, typically we're all hosts of this show, but I try to drive the show for all of us. It's your turn to drive as we head into March Madness conversation and Jack's bracketology and what we should be watching. And so, sir, I ceremoniously hand the keys over to you.
Oh, how was I supposed to like also mime grab it? Sorry.
Yeah, catch them
thanks.
as I
Well,
gave them
it.
to you.
I don't know.
Yeah, all right.
Start the car.
No, I think when you say wheelhouse season, like, yes, I've watched a lot of college basketball, not as much this year. I do track it, follow it pretty aggressively throughout the season. But the best part of March Madness is that it's everybody's wheelhouse, because what you get to do is you have to just pick a series of games in a very simple bracket, and everybody feels more confident in their picks than everybody else's. So even though it's my wheelhouse, everyone should feel like it's their wheelhouse by the time things start Thursday morning. I thought that, just to start off, the selection show was fine. Like, the actual production was not as good as it has always been, but I didn't have too many issues with the teams that made the bracket. I know there was a lot of Rutgers should have made it instead of Nevada, or instead of NC State was another bubble team, but otherwise I wasn't too upset with the way that they handled the bubble this year. And I think that this is kind of a fun March Madness year because there isn't one true alpha team, right? There's no, who can beat this team? It's kind of a class of teams, and it's almost the top 10, 8 to 10. Like, there's a lot of teams. I made a list of teams that I think could reasonably be the champion. And let's see, I've got 13 teams that I could see cutting it down at the end. So there should be a lot of variety in everyone's respective bracket pools.
Now, Tyler, I see you raise your eyebrows when he says there's no real like supernova team that's going to take over this tournament. Who can beat them?
Boilers.
No, you do raise a good point. They are the worst
trains.
of the 1 seeds. They are they beat the 10-seeded Penn State in the Big Ten championship by 2 points after almost blowing a lead. There's nothing to be worried about with Purdue.
They're just a bunch of gritty guys. Okay? People ask what a Boilermaker is. It's a freaking blue-collar worker who works on a train. That's what they are, just a bunch of blue-collar guys.
Mark, this is the third time Tyler has used the word grit this episode.
Our podcast is gritty. The Purdue men's basketball team is gritty.
Oh my God, he's literally grittying on the podcast right now.
Literally.
Oh, literally. All of our TikTok users will understand that one. If you guys don't, you just don't. It's fine. So you have 13 teams listed as possible national champions at the end of this bracket. But I ask you now to list maybe your top 5 and a brief reason why this team is going to go farther than anybody else.
So I do think that the 4 1 seeds are probably the 4 best teams. So in order, that's Alabama, who ended the year as the number 1 team in the country. They are the number 1 overall seed. They have a very easy path to the Sweet 16. It could be tough getting to the Final Four, but they have a good case. It's either them or the next team, Houston, that I think is the best team in the country. Houston plays in a little bit of a weaker conference in the American Conference, but they were number 1 for quite a while. They do have one of their best players, Marcus Sasser, is injured with a groin injury. So they can get through the first couple rounds without him, but he probably needs to heal up by next weekend if they want to make a deep run. Kansas is the most been there team of the 1 seeds, and they were very close. They were Big 12 regular season champs, lost to Texas in the championship game. But I think between Jalen Wilson, Grady Dick, they've got a lot of they've got players who have experience in. Oh yeah, fun last name, right? I think that they've got one team that they have to beat in their Sweet 16 area, UConn, that would make me a little nervous. But they've got a pretty clear path. And then Purdue, I think far and away was the best team in the Big Ten, which is seen as one of the best teams or best conferences in Division I basketball. So they have to be contenders, and they're in what I think is the weakest section. I think that the East should be the easiest to get through. So I'm probably going to have Purdue in the Final Four on most of my renditions of bracketing.
So those are all the number 1 seeds. You give great reasons for all of them. If there was a team listed as a non-number 1 that you would say this team is an outsider's shot at winning the whole thing, who is it?
If we're going outside shot, I'll go a little bit further down the list. I think that in the West region, there's an opening because I don't buy UCLA as the 2 as being an extremely strong 2. Their resume is good, but I don't think the team is as good. They just have a lot of veterans and senior stuff. And so if Kansas were to go down, you've got 3 Gonzaga and 4 UConn, both in that region. And those are teams that KenPom has in like the top 6 or 7 in basketball. So they're a little underseeded on true quality. That I think is the West is the most likely to send a team to the Final Four that is not the number 1 seed, not because their 1 seed's bad, but because they just kind of have a stacked setup. And I think UConn is the most talented team in the Big East, even though Marquette was higher seeded, got the higher seed here, won the Big East championship. So I think UConn and Gonzaga should be in more people's Final Fours than their seed line indicates.
This is the final year for Drew Timme, right?
This is, I believe, Drew Timme's last year. And the fact that he is still playing college basketball is kind of crazy. Shout out COVID years. But I'm like,
I feel like I've been watching him play college basketball since I was in high school.
Yep, that's how Gonzaga goes.
Jack, if you could pick, what is your favorite upset in this bracket? Or do you have one? Is there a team that is going to jump out and really shock the world and ruin everyone's brackets?
Oh, okay. So, all right, I'll start off. The easiest upset pick is Utah State to beat Missouri. That's 10/7. A lot of people are going to pick that. Utah State is actually favored in that matchup, so I'm not counting it as an upset. But if you want to dig deep and you just want to play into a fun narrative, a big spoiler would be Kennesaw State beating Xavier.
You've been so high on Kennesaw State.
I picked them to win the Atlantic Sun. They did. They beat Liberty. They beat Liberty 3 times this year. And we've heard of Liberty because they've played 12 seed spoiler, 13 seed spoiler in the past. They've been a decent team. This is the first NCAA tournament appearance for Kennesaw State. They did get my Hangin' a Banner the other week. I think that you've got guys who they're there with nothing to lose. They were a team that had 1 win a few years ago. This school has never had a March Madness game. And they have a really good defense. And
Tyler
suffocating
loves
defense
Liberty,
can
by the
ruin
way.
big teams.
I do not love Liberty.
Oh, what do you have against Liberty?
I don't have anything against them. I played them before. Malik Willis decided to come to Western Kentucky and blow us out of the water. That wasn't cool of him.
I think I was there for that game.
I forgot about the Malik
Willis.
Liberty.
Also, the president is a cuck. So you got that. Did you not? There's a whole documentary on this. I highly recommend it. It was very good on Hulu.
Oh, that was a literal statement.
What a large claim. Wow.
It's not a claim. It is backed. It's like a thing.
What's the name of the documentary?
I could tell you what it's called. Give me a sec.
Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Cuckold.
No, it's God. Falwell? It's called God Forbid, a sex scandal that brought down a dynasty.
Oh, I've heard of this. That was about the president of Liberty?
I don't think I realized
and his wife.
I heard
wow.
It is. I recommend it. It was a very good watch. Very solid documentary too. Yeah, very good. I mean, crazy.
Dang. Oh, yeah, I recognize that name. I didn't realize that was the Liberty president. Yeah, well, they didn't go dancing. And maybe it's because of this Falwell guy. Maybe he should have had a cleaner act.
One name that I see in here, or that I don't see in here this year for the men's bracket, is no Saint Bonaventure, which always makes me mad when there's no Saint Bonaventure because I miss
Saint Bona.
It's a year where we don't get to see the meme of the dude with the ridiculously large shorts.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like,
No, those, you know what? Those memes will still come in, right? I feel like some of these perennial college basketball things, like we don't have Villanova this year, but you're gonna see the flute girl in tweets, right? You're gonna see the flautist from Villanova. Like they're in the NIT, but we're still gonna see it come up. So maybe we'll get bonus shorts guy.
my favorite clip that comes up every time this year is I forget where the guy played, but they ask him, "What are you going to miss most from your time playing basketball?" And he says, "Man," he hangs his head for a second. He comes back up. He says, "Probably eating food." Which is a silly answer, but like I get like the general like camaraderie that you have with your
Yeah,
friends and
team
your
spirit
guys
and
of like
stuff.
going to get food and just making the memories. Like I totally get that, but it is just a funny moment to just be like, probably just getting food.
Bro,
Tyler,
I
can you
can't.
attest to that?
Yes, if I could, that's one of the things that I miss most actually is like just being around my friends and being able to eat with them and like just do dumb shit with them. Like that's probably one of the big things for me that I miss about football, just being around the guys and hanging out and
Guys being dudes.
just being dudes. Like I don't get to do that anymore. I was able to do that this weekend and that was like the best. It was like the highlight of my 2023. So
It's still early, so that's good.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of room to go up, I guess, right?
So Tyler asks about potential upsets. I ask about your pick for Cinderella.
Oh, okay. So we're talking then. We'll be specific. That's going to be a team that is seeded 12 or lower that I think will go the farthest in the tournament. I think is how Cinderella should be defined. And it's tough because I love the 12s, the 13s, the 14s, the 15s. This might be one of the highest quality low major showings we've ever had. And so a lot of them are, if they can get past that first matchup, they can probably get past the second one too.
Yeah, I mean, you look like Providence and Kentucky looks like a good matchup. If you're looking, what is this, the West over here or the East? Providence and Kentucky, or Oral Roberts and Duke sounds fun.
Yeah, I think the team I'll go with, and this is tough because I don't want to sound like a hypocrite, but opinions change so fast when you look at the bracket nonstop all day. I'm going to go with Kent State right now. They play Indiana in the first round. Indiana is a 4. I'm not concerned about how good they are. I'm concerned about how many games they can string together. And so I feel like Indiana's good enough that they could make a deep run. But Kent State beat Toledo in a high scoring game. Their offense is just nuts. The MAC wasn't great. But I think if they can get past Indiana, they're either getting a weaker Drake team than we've seen in the past, or Miami, Florida, who I loved coming into the month of March, but they've fallen off a bit lately, and one of their top players is injured. I'm struggling to remember his name at the moment. Norchad Omier is injured, might not play for Miami. So I could see a Kent State Sweet 16 appearance. I'll lock that one in now, I guess. That's my pick.
Works for me. Perfect.
Fuck IU.
That's fine. IU Purdue rivalry.
The finest establishment in terms of education in the great state of Indiana is located in West Lafayette. Boiler up, baby. Hammer down.
Hammer down.
Jack, as we kind of transition now out of March Madness talk, there's going to be a bevy of games on this weekend. The round of 64 and the round of 32 will complete by the time that we get to Sunday.
Mhm.
What are we watching? What should we be watching, at least in the round of 64, when we know what we can watch?
So the first step is to find either other people or a space in your house where you can set up multiple viewing monitors, because one is not going to do the trick. But if that's the case, that you only have one, you could do a TV computer, but you don't really want to, or maybe you've got to plug one thing into another. If you can only watch one game at a time, I have gone through and picked what I think the most exciting watch of each time block is. So I'll run through those quick. The early slate on Thursday. So these are the games starting between 11 and 1, I think all of them tip off. The most watchable is Utah State versus Mizzou. Will be on TNT. Utah State Aggies were 18 in Ken Palm rankings. Mizzou's got an awesome 4-year senior in Kobe Brown. And between these two teams, they are going to shoot a ridiculous amount of threes. And both of them are top 40 in the country at making 3-pointers. So this is high scoring game. way underseeded Utah State at 10. I think this might be one of the best. This might be the best game of the round of 64. You move to, I'll call it time block B. So that's your early afternoon games before the midday break. I like Charleston versus San Diego State, which actually takes place also in that same region. Where we look in the South region. Charleston was 31-3 this year, which is kind of wild. Also gave North Carolina a run for their money when we thought North Carolina was actually going to be good. They have 5 players all averaging at least 10 points a game. And then they play just really fast basketball. San Diego State, I don't know. If you're a casual college basketball watcher, you might be kind of sick of seeing them play over the last decade. They used to be really good. Now they're still pretty good, but I'm hoping for a Charleston victory. But San Diego State, I mean, they're also a pretty elite team. So that's a fun one. What do we got? Time block C, the early night games. I hate, don't hold this against me, but I'm going to put Oral Roberts Duke, and I would never tell people like you should watch more Duke basketball. I feel like they're a blight on the sports world. They've got to be one of the most hated teams in any sport. But Oral Roberts is so cool. They beat like everyone in the Summit League by so much. Max Asmus is going to have the most tournament experience out of anybody in this game. So I'm just hoping that you either see Duke really run through and it's like, oh, they could be an awesome fun team for the rest of the tournament, or we get the Oral Roberts continue destroying people in the tournament. So that's got high watchability for sure. And then to close out Thursday, the late night games, UCLA, UNC Asheville. You've got a lot of key players on UCLA who have been on their good teams in the last couple of years. But the big name here is one of the most exciting players to watch in the tournament, and it'll probably only be for one game. Drew Pember at UNC Asheville is one of the best players in the country, averages over 21 points per game, averages just under 10 rebounds per game, and was very important in UNC Asheville's conference tournament run. So fun player. That might not actually be the best game. It could be a blowout, but it's one of those. Part of the fun of March Madness is getting to see guys that you might not see again for a while, if ever. And Drew Pember fits that category. So there's 4 games on Thursday. I could go into Friday if you guys want, but that should be enough to get people excited for the weekend, right?
Wet people's whistles.
Yeah, right. The only other
I
one
mean,
I'll mention one more in the Friday late slate because I think it's my favorite game of the first round. It's Florida Atlantic versus Memphis. That's a 9 versus an 8. And it's going to hurt me to watch because I really did not want these teams to play against each other because they're both super fun. And I think it's a crime to make awesome mid-major teams play each other in the first round when stupid like Maryland or Illinois or some boring Big Ten school is going to sneak by. And it's like, why couldn't we have had Memphis knock one of them off? But that should be a really cool game.
Illinois poverty basketball program.
Dude, the fall off is nuts. If you asked me 3 weeks ago, I would say Illinois might be the second best team in the Big Ten. And now I'm like, if we played another week of basketball, they might not have made March Madness. Like things are falling apart so quickly.
Just remember, Ayo Dosunmu was the glue guy for that entire program out there in Champaign. So, all right, all that's coming your way this weekend with March Madness kicking off on Thursday morning, really. Moving all the way through Sunday afternoon. It's going to be a jam-packed weekend. I will not hear from Jack Coachman at all this weekend.
Or you might hear too much from me.
Should we do like a little bracket competition between the 3 of us for a punishment episode?
I had an idea that we could even do. I had an idea that we could even, once we're done recording episode 25, do a Hangin Banners special just for Jack, where we create a podcast bracket together.
Yeah,
if we have the time.
Please, I have the time. If we're talking about brackets, I promise you I have the time. I went through, the lists I've got on my computer, you wouldn't even believe. They're not even going to help me. And every year, you know what I do? I'll host a bracket pool of 25 people. I'm going to finish in like 17th or something, but not for not having put in 50 hours of research.
All right. Well, we'll do that following the podcast. So be on the lookout for that. If you're listening to this, whenever, we'll have our own bracket episode live for you. And coming your way in, well, whenever you click on it, I guess. This isn't a live show. This is a recorded show, people. But with that, we'll wrap up our talk with March Madness for now, and we'll move into starting five. So last week we introduced this segment. It's our draft style segment where we're only touching on the most important topics out there. Last week we talked about spring things and we drafted anything spring. It could be related to the season. It could have the word spring in it. Regardless, spring things were drafted and the people have spoken and I won that draft.
If we had a draft of just things in the world, I would probably not draft the people because they're 0 for 1 in decision making so far. Definitely the most disappointing part of draft season is their inability to identify a good roster comp.
So in some way, shape, or form, we have to come up with a decent punishment for whoever finishes in last once we put starting five on the shelf come next football season. We need to find a way to figure out what we're doing to that person who comes in dead last for being the worst drafter on the podcast. But being that I won, I get to choose the topic for today, and we are drafting fields. And as I said at the top of the show, the reason this came to mind is because the World Baseball Classic is on. We're able to see a bunch of cool fields all over the world. And so that came to my mind when I had to make the decision about an hour before we started recording.
I'm just realizing I didn't even think of any like arenas. Because the whole time when you said Fields, I thought you meant like Justin Fields. So I'm like, oh, he's just thinking stupid Bears stuff. Like we're trying to, dude. Oh my gosh, I might already just lose this week.
I was kind of thinking the same thing.
Oh no, not another Ryan week.
This is my Walter White in a crawl space moment where I'm just laughing maniacally.
Wait, so how do we do? How are we doing draft order? Do we go last to first snake from poll results? Do we just shuffle it again? What are you thinking?
You know what? I don't have a great answer for that. So what I was thinking to decide second and third is a good old fashioned coin toss.
Okay.
So you are confirmed going first?
Yeah, I won.
Winner's honor.
Moron.
All right. On one poll, you won.
All right.
We
Tyler,
have to come up with a better way.
Yeah, we do. I mean, we do. Tyler,
consolidate the results.
We need to put the poll up earlier than the day of recording.
Yes, that's also a very good thing.
That's a me thing. Hand up. That's on me.
I voted.
Good. I did too. And I voted for myself. Tyler, because you put the graphic together, this is your payment. You get to call it in the air. You ready?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Here we go.
Tails.
Kind of in the air.
It is tails.
Nice.
It is tails. So Tyler, you will go second. Jack, you get third and the snake.
Okay. Third and the snake. Let's see.
Yeah, so you'll get the wraparound. And so let the drafting commence with the first pick in the field draft. This feels like I'm not really going to get a value pick here. I feel like I'm kind of locked into this pick. The number one pick in the field draft will be Wrigley Field.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, like when you think about who deserves to go number one, who else would you take number one in a field draft?
I guess you'll see with my pick.
You'll find out at number 2.
Okay. With the second pick in the draft,
I picked the Field of Dreams.
Yeah, that's what I had
one.
at number 1. That's why I had
That's a good one.
Too. It was okay. I just the Wrigley Field going first of all. It's not a bad pick. It just was.
No, it's not a bad pick.
It wasn't met with enough excitement, maybe because there aren't too many Cubs fans that heard you pick that.
I actually really enjoy Wrigley Field. It's a great time, and it's a beautiful ballpark. But I think that's like a 4th round pick.
A 4th round pick?
Wow.
There's a lot of good fields that I have. I don't even have Wrigley on my list.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't either, but that's because I forgot.
I didn't have Field of Dreams on my list, but it did cross my mind. It just never got pen to paper.
Yikes. Oh, that's a tough one. Remember that. Okay, Ryan Sartori, not a Field of Dreams fan. All right, I'll go my first pick would have been Field of Dreams. But the next song I'm going with is just a beautiful, timeless song, and it's the Fields of Strawberry. Strawberry
Yeah.
Fields Forever.
That made my list for sure.
That was like the first thing that came to my mind. It's just a great song. It paints a really nice picture. I don't know, just kind of pretty. And I will say, I think I had the prettiest list last week, but maybe there aren't points for pretty, so I'm
The prettiest list, the most audible list, and then whatever Ryan had.
Chaos.
Yours is all smells. Yours is all different scents.
Not mine. That was
Tyler's.
Tyler's.
The cut grass and the rain and
Tangible
Windows open.
experiences. I thought I could relate to people.
Well-
all right, and then I'm gonna take actually the best field in Chicago. For sure would have been ahead of Wrigley Field. It's the Field Museum.
I had that on my list as well.
Dude, the Field I have not been there in such a long time, but that's an A class field trip spot. That's trying to just do something on the weekend. One of the coolest historical museums in the country. Field Museum at number 2.
One of the most
for me.
complete, that's for sure.
Mhm.
Rockford's version of the Field Museum is called the Burpee Museum.
I think I've been there.
Yeah, very cool, fun. They have a T-Rex.
Yeah, they always
yeah.
said wasn't it Sue's sister? That's what they called her.
Didn't hear that, but
When I was a kid. I'll never forget that when I was a kid. That was a great pick, Ryan. That was or Jack. That was on my list too.
Thank you.
I am going to go with your favorite day when you were a kid in elementary school.
Fuck!
Field day.
God damn it!
I didn't think of that. That's a good one. That was the best day in elementary school, right?
This is an excellent pick. This is an
now that I
excellent
think
pick.
about it, maybe there were a couple other highlights on a given calendar year, but yeah, once you hit late April, you're like, when's field day?
This is
That's
an
what I'm
excellent pick. That was actually probably going to come off the board next because I thought I was being real original with field day. But no, I mean, on top of that, watching an athletic performance where somebody is having a field day is also a very fun experience and a fun phrase to use when somebody is trotting all over another team. So now this gives me a second to kind of sit and think that I'm going to switch things up. I'm not going to go with another establishment. I'm going to go off the beaten path. Well, I'm going to go off the beaten path because I get the snake anyway. So I would like to take something that many professional teams covet. I would say that in the regular season, this is what they play for more than anything. I'm going to take with the next pick in this draft, home field advantage.
Okay, that's a lot better than what I thought.
See, I didn't think of that one. That's a great pick.
I thought you were going to say field position, and I'm like, wow, that's so boring. All these teams fighting for field position.
No, not here.
You guys like home field advantage? Do you like?
question.
Would you
Yes.
prefer sports to be in a vacuum, neutral site, or do you like the home field advantage?
I like home field advantage.
I think it's a fun thing to play for, and I think that it definitely adds significant value for the regular season. Otherwise, what are you playing for? If it was at neutral sites, what's it for? So next on the board, I think I've got to go back to one of the more beautiful stadiums that I've ever been to, and one that I know a ton of baseball fans really enjoy, especially those who play MLB The Show. Shout out to all my PS4 players out there. It's Coors Field. Coors Field in Denver, Colorado. A beautiful field. Again, one that I've been to. I was absolutely enamored with the stadium, the views, all of it. So Coors Field is my next selection.
That's good. I've also heard that's one of the cooler stadiums in baseball.
So cool.
Juice
So
balls
cool.
all the time.
Only ever juice balls.
After the World Baseball Classic is like, let's go play at the Chase Field Humidor.
My third pick is off the beaten path as well. I'm going with Cloverfields, as in the movie saga. That is Cloverfield, the Cloverfield Paradox, and Cloverfield Lane. Great movie saga.
Cloverfield franchise.
Okay, not one that I had.
No, I think that's got a little bit, not that it's not a popular thing, but I do think there's a pretty dedicated cult following that gets very excited when there's another Cloverfield production coming out.
Yeah.
You just need them. You need to get them to vote.
Right. I didn't know because that was the first thing I thought of when he said field. So I didn't know if that was something that popped in your heads as well. So I thought 3 was a pretty safe pick for it.
I do like that we've all gone away from like the traditional meaning of field. Everybody has at least one pick. I'm glad the precedent was set last week. I had to make a chaos list of picks, but now we're all exactly where I want us to be this week. So Jack, you have the 9th pick in this draft.
Yeah, and it was only because you capitalized it, by the way. In the text that you said we're doing a Fields draft, and Fields was capitalized. So that's why I thought of like proper noun type things, not just the literal, like, I'm going to go play on football field. That's what I'm going to take. No. All right, let's see. Where am I here? Do I want to reach a little bit? No, you know what? Sports podcast. We got to take some sports stuff. I'm going to take field events. I think if you're going to watch track and field, I personally would much rather watch the field events. So you're giving me the javelin, the discus, the pole vault, and I instead am losing the like different length runs and stuff. So yeah, give me the shot put, all these kind of the field events is what they're called.
Interesting. And you get the snake.
I do get the snake, and I'll take him because I think I could have safely taken him 5th, but it's March Madness, right? We're all ready for it. I'm taking the field of 68, which is that's the name given to the teams that qualify for March Madness. 68 teams make the bracket. So the field of 68, even though some of them are going to lose this week, most of them are going to lose this week, I'm welcoming all of them to my Fields draft. I will take all 68 teams.
Interesting. Tyler, I'm very interested to see how exactly you put that in a graphic.
I'm going to put the NCAA bracket in there.
I would like to see
or I might
every
just repeat.
single team's logo.
Yeah, you know the logos. One player from each team, please.
That's so hard. That'd be so difficult.
It's a lot of work on my end. My gosh.
Tyler, you've got pick number 11.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to go with field of vision. We'd like to be able to see
the literal, like, okay,
your literal field of vision.
I really feel like I've got some pretty significant value picks here at the snake. I could go a couple different ways here. I mean, these are my last 2 picks.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to play them appropriately. God, there's so much value here. Do I go back sports? What do I have? Home field advantages.
You
sports.
got Wrigley, home field, and course.
Yeah, they're all sports. All right, this is for all my man whores out there.
Whoa,
I guess this is a everybody friendly podcast. All my regular whores too.
I have no idea where this is going.
I'm going with playing the field. For those unfamiliar with the term, this is where you have probably a roster of individuals that you date or do other things with. You do things with the whole roster. You play the field.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Good.
And I would assume for somebody who does play the field, it's a whole lot of fun. I've never would.
It's an interesting pick on your, considering you have like over a 10-year relationship.
Listen, I'm not saying I have. Like I said, never would. But I'm sure for somebody out there, they're like, this guy gets it. I don't. But I'm here for you. Kind of. Not in the way you want me to be. Wrapping things up. There's so much value here. I went for the joke pick. I feel like I really got to bring things home.
But you did a joke pick first, right?
No.
You took Wrigley at the
beginning. Bringing things home. This is going to be sacrilegious, especially with the emblem that I have on my left breast. It's the home of Titletown. It's one of the most historic stadiums in the NFL. One that many people dream of playing at. With my final pick, I'm going to draft Lambeau Field.
This is where this is tough because I think it would have been cool if we all took the like stadium field approach. That would have been nice.
If we all took the stadium,
evaluated like one against the other. This is tough.
If we all took the stadium field approach, we wouldn't have been able to have 15 picks. There's only so many that are fields. You can't do stadium. Like I didn't do Fenway Park.
True. I mean, you've got some like college ones and stuff too, right?
Sure,
Okay.
which
Lambeau Field.
we'll go over the honorable mentions. The undrafted free agents come up next.
Tyler, this already kind of hurts because we each have one more pick left, and I already think we're both ahead of Ryan again, and he's going to somehow win.
Yeah, because he's going to post the poll, and then that's bias, confirmation bias.
It's
anyway,
on the
Yeah, it's on the
fucking
neutral
Hangin'
account.
Banners podcast account.
if you vote for it more than once on different accounts, kind of sus.
There's only one poll that matters. You can put the poll up on your Instagram story all you want. It doesn't count. That's biased in and of itself.
Wait a second. Were you voting with your personal account and the Hangin'? Did the Hangin' Banners account vote in the poll?
Did I do the loser approach and vote on the creating accounts own poll? No.
Okay, just checking.
You guys all have access to the Twitter. You guys can all go check to see if the Twitter voted on its own poll.
Okay, maybe I will.
I
All
don't
right,
even know if
Tyler,
you guys
put
are
in the poll
logged
button.
in on our own Twitter.
I don't log in because I didn't know if that was an issue. If you wouldn't be able to access it if I have it under my accounts that I can switch between. Anyway, a conversation.
Yeah,
for
I was gonna say.
day.
All right.
my last pick. Again, I'm going with sunflower fields because they're some of the most beautiful things I've ever seen while I was in Canada. So, a full field of sunflowers.
Yeah.
All right,
nice,
so that prompts a trivia question. Do you guys know which state is the sunflower state?
I do not know.
happiness.
It's close,
Sounds-
close. It's not happiness. It's Kansas. Kansas is
Oh.
the sunflower state.
Sweet. Jack, you have the final pick of the Fields draft.
Yeah, I have some things that I think I would appreciate more than anybody else would. So I'm just going to go for standard acclaim. And I'm going to take two-time Oscar winner, two-time Emmy winner, and also one of the stars of the upcoming movie 80 for Brady, Sally Field. Who I feel
Great
like
pick.
actually Sally Field's most notable works to people in our generation are not her actual most acclaimed performances, like Forrest Gump and the Spider-Man movies, but she won her Oscars for, I think it was, what was it? Norma Ray, and I can't think of what the other one was, but it was very old.
How I know Sally Field is Forrest Gump's mom. Like that's who comes up in my head.
Yeah,
When
or Aunt May and the Spider-Mans was the
Yep.
other one that I think a lot of people have.
Yep.
But, so whether that's how
Yeah.
you know her or you know her, what was the other one?
It's the Amazing Spider-Man.
Oh yeah, the
Just
Amazing
clarify.
Spider-Mans. Yeah.
fucking Goomba.
No, that's good. No. Let's correct all the information so that people realize that Sally Field is a irrelevant, Mr. Irrelevant pick is a that I think is insane value. She could have gone first round. Jeez.
She could have. She was on my list. Undrafted free agents for me: Justin Fields,
Boo.
Soldier Field, Mrs. Fields Cookies.
Yeah, I had
That's a
Mrs.
good
Field.
one.
I had Mrs.
That's a
Yeah,
good one.
undrafted free agent. That would probably be a highly coveted undrafted free agent. And also kind of an out of the way pick, and one that I'm sure not many people would know, but Appalachian State has a phenomenal baseball field, especially when fall time rolls around, all the leaves and stuff are changing. It's beautiful. I would look up photos. That's Beaver Field at Jim and Betty Smith Stadium is gorgeous.
You're telling me
All
that's
my
not
undrafted.
Oregon State's field? It's the App State Beaver Field.
It's the Appalachian State Mountaineers Field. It's Beaver Field.
Beaver. Interesting.
Yeah.
Tyler, do you have any leftovers?
I do not.
Wow, you got everybody on your big board?
Wow.
Yeah, I did.
Jeez.
Like you said, we had like an hour to put this together. So this is what I threw together. I'm happy with my list. I don't think, I didn't want to be normal, to be average this week and pick a bunch of just regular fields. So I think I stand apart pretty good with my list.
Yeah, so Tyler goes Field of Dreams, Field Day, Cloverfield Saga, Field of Vision, and Sunflower Field.
Yep.
And Jack, do you have any undrafted free agents?
Oh, I had a ton, but I'm not going to name all of them. The one that I was thinking about at the end There's a poem called "In Flanders Fields" that's often regarded as one of the nicer poems. I do really enjoy it as well. It was a World War One poem. It's a pretty good one. "Fields of Gold," a song by Sting, thought is pretty good. And then I had to consider "The Field," when every now and then you'll have listed odds that are somebody so favored that you can bet them or the field. But normally, if that's the case, it's because the field isn't as good as that other side, and so that's why I couldn't take them. But those were the ones I was considering. Otherwise, it's a bunch of junk.
Jack's team as a whole, Strawberry Fields Forever, Field Museum. He also had field events, the Field of 68, and Sally Field. Great team.
Thank you.
I don't know that
hopefully finish top 2 in voting.
I don't know that anything beats Wrigley Field, home field advantage, Coors Field, playing the field, and Lambeau Field. But
I
we'll
like
find
home
out.
field advantage. I like home field advantage.
It was nice to see everybody collectively go, "Oh yeah, I like that pick." Everybody always likes to rag on me for my picks, I guess. I say always as if we've done this for episodes and episodes. This is 2 consecutive episodes where everybody has consecutively hated almost every single one of my picks. A reminder for all that I am 1-0. You guys are 0-1.
Also, a reminder for all: make sure you go vote on our poll. We're going to have it up earlier this week. It was a little biased.
Let's say
because someone. Oh, I'm going to take charge of this poll this week. I'm putting it up on our Instagram and our Twitter, and we're going to get more consistent results across both.
Wait.
So,
just functions of social media. I'll tell you why I'm not posting it, because I'm probably the most social media illiterate of the 3. Is on Instagram, you put the poll in your story, right? But that only lasts for 24 hours, yeah?
mm-hmm.
But if we put it on Twitter, then we can make it last for multiple days, right? Is it worth doing that, or do we do both? I'm just curious on the mechanisms, how we're accumulating these votes.
So I think because this is going to air Wednesday, that's the day, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So I will put the poll up on Thursday. Thursday will be the only day people can vote. We will only consider Thursday votes.
Wow. Okay.
Hey, putting his foot down. That's all I can ask. Jack, huge news in NFL free agency developing right now with the New Orleans Saints.
Oh, no.
Jameis Winston is finalizing a deal to return to the Saints.
Do we have any idea what the terms of that deal are?
No, but apparently Josina Anderson is the one who got the text from Jameis Winston saying that he's finalizing the deal. And as we're wrapping up this show, Draymond Jones is planning to sign a big deal with the Seahawks. The numbers are not out yet, but as I'm checking my phone and seeing everything as we're going through this, Eric Kendricks has just signed with the Chargers. Marcus Davenport is going to the Vikings. Jimmy Ward is signing with the Texans, and Draymond Jones is headed again to Seattle. Those are the big moves that happened while we were recording.
That's crazy. Do you think the Saints believe that Jameis Winston can still blossom into a better quarterback? Because I wonder if it's nobody else was going to pay him as much. They just like him in the system or whatever. But with Derek Carr now, I like it because I like Jameis, but I'm a little confused is all.
I feel like Jameis could go get starting reps somewhere. Like, what's Washington going to do this year at quarterback? Are they just going to roll out Heineke every day, every
They've
game?
got
I'm fine with that.
Howell. Do they still have Howell on the team?
Sam Howell, from is it UNC?
UNC.
The gap between Trubisky and Spencer May that's coming out next year. Yeah. Also, while we were in and recording, Zach Allen is headed to the Broncos. Yeah, headed to Denver. So the Denver Broncos seem like they're all in.
Trying to be kind of in.
Yeah. Bobby Okereke signed a deal with the Colts while we were recording. Lots of stuff happened, so we've got to catch up on some of this stuff. We'll wrap up the show, though, by hanging a banner. Guys, what do you got?
I'll go.
Okay, good.
I heard the inhale. I'm like, all right, I'll let him go. And I'm like, no, you think about it for a second. Mine's easy. It's quick, so you don't have much time to think, because I don't think it would be right to hang a banner for anything other than March Madness. And I imagine that even though we want different banners to be hung throughout the course that this show runs. Anytime that we hit the first week of March Madness from here going forwards, the banner I'm hanging will always be for March Madness. So
listen, you are more than welcome to go absolutely March Madness wild during the first week of March Madness, because when opening day comes around, I will be even more insufferable about baseball than I have previously been in the off season for baseball.
Dude, I might hang a banner for March Madness on opening day, depending on how everything shakes out, just to remind you what it's really like to have a bunch of fun.
I want to hang a banner this week for Rudy Gobert. 3 years ago this week was the infamous spreading of COVID amongst the Utah Jazz when everything was starting to kind of come to fruition with COVID and the initial breakout, when he was being interviewed by reporters and then stood up and touched all of their recording devices. And literally, was it a day later that Donovan Mitchell was diagnosed with COVID, and then Rudy Gobert was tested positive for COVID? It was the epitome of the ignorance that we had towards a disease that impacted our lives and continues to impact our lives. 3 years ago this week, Rudy Gobert did that.
Oh my God. That was so weird, dude. Him just wiping his hands over everything and
seeing all the Snapchat memories that pop up on my feed of oh, I know this was what I did right before everything got shut down. Pretty surreal feeling.
Yeah.
Still to this day. I'm hanging a banner this week for the St. Louis Battlehawks.
Yes.
They sold out of their tickets. Yeah. They almost opened the 400 level of the stadium. But they stuck with the 300 level for this first game and had 40,000 people in attendance. Absolutely mind-blowing for an XFL game this season, which attendance hasn't been super great. Most attendance was probably at Audi Field with the DC Defenders. Now the crown is given to St. Louis. Crazy environment to play in, I'm sure.
Very cool that even after the events that have happened in your life, that you're still able to give flowers out to the XFL. Hats off to you, man. That's big.
Yeah, well, it's not going to seem like I'm big once the season's over and I do a tell all. So it'll be very interesting.
Wow.
My producer brain just went
Battlehawks, such a cool name for a team.
Excellent. A+ name. There's so many dumb ones like Brahmas. How self-serving can you be, Dwayne? The Draymond Jones deal, 3 years, $48 million. So not a huge deal for Draymond, who is expected to have a gigantic, exorbitant price as a defensive tackle. But we will wrap up the show here in episode 25. Thanks for hanging with the Hangin Banners podcast. We'll see you again next week for episode 26. Also, keep an eye out for the Hangin Banners bracket breakdown podcast, which will be coming your way whenever you choose to click on it. But it'll be available on anywhere you get your podcast, anywhere that you can watch this podcast, which happens to just be YouTube. So we got to get out of here. My tact, my flow in and out of sentences is completely off. All right. Thanks for hanging again, guys. Peace.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot for that look into sports, Brian. Yeah. And when we come back, we'll have one final look at weather. Stay tuned.